JB here, August 22nd, 2024. Welcome to Fed Chair Powell Eve, right? Fed Chair is going to be speaking at Jackson Hole tomorrow at 10 o'clock. That'll be the next big uh, piece of news to watch. But markets futures are looking pretty good here. Weekly jobless claims came in somewhat as expected. Yesterday, the Fed minutes painted a somewhat dovish tone. Some of the Fed officials are ready to cut rates at the July meeting. So pretty much that rate cut in September, it's already been somewhat of a foregone conclusion, but it just kind of cements that in. And now it's just whether if it's a 1/4% or 0.5%. Uh, Funny stuff too. Weekly jobs claims today, and then yesterday was that benchmark revision of the jobs number over the past year. I it's like every data point that comes out that is going to either it's like confirmation bias almost to a point where we had the jobless jobs report for June come out, and I mean for August come out. It was July's number come out in August, and now all of a sudden the any jobs data is the most uh, picked over data point now, and then this benchmark revision, which you rarely ever hear, I've rarely ever heard of, is all of a sudden this big headline that was coming out yesterday, and it turned out to be somewhat a non-event, although it was historically weak revisions, nearly over 800,000 jobs revised over the past year, uh, the most since 2009. I mean, the market just shook it off. No big deal. Fed minutes came out, markets ramped, and it seems like that's the playbook. Market opens higher, reverses course, hits lows in the late morning, well, 10:30, sometimes 11, actually hit lows at noon yesterday, and then embarks on a rally. The only time that we didn't get that was on Tuesday, right? And we'll see how things play out here today. S&P is now up 9 of the past 10 sessions. And then, it's going to be a big deal tomorrow. Fed Chair Powell, it's like he's going to just come out and walk his tightrope, which he's been doing for quite some time. And I think you got to look the more outside of any kind of geopolitical situation over the weekend. The market's probably going to hit highs in the coming days. So, uh, also, and then IWM still struggling here. I mean, it was up nice yesterday, reversing the losses from the previous session. But once 216, 217, maybe can get some firepower here and finally start to outperform. I'm trying to think if there was some other data points that I'm missing, but maybe I can find it and post it in the chat room later. And then last but not least is the VIX here. And the VIX was higher yesterday despite the market closing in the green. I think some of it just pricing in some possible volatility tomorrow with Powell's speech. All right, so now individual names, and first, I'll talk really quick about SE. Similar to the market, SE has been on a monster tear, a little pullback on Tuesday, recouped some of those losses yesterday, closing up 1.2%. If it starts to hold 82.50 here today, I may look for some more strikes on top of my September calls. And also on the flip side, I'll look to lock some of my September calls when they get to 100%. They're getting close. If it gets to 84, so those will probably be up over 100%. So I'll look to lock some of the September strikes in. Story hasn't changed here in regards to my thoughts on SE Limited. Netties reported earnings this morning, and not that it's a apples for apples comparison, but it's getting hurt a little bit here. But I think some of it's on the revenue side. I don't think there's any kind of tie through here on SE. So hopefully not. And it's actually gapping up a little bit here in the pre-market. So hopefully that holds like 82.50 or so. A block reverse morning losses yesterday after the Fed minutes came out. It seemed like all the crypto names were rallying, and coin, MSTR. Uh, I think there's probably more play now with block than there was before in regards to some sympathy moves with the crypto names. Held the 50-day. 50-day was 83.87. Oh, excuse me, 63.87. Wishful thinking. Maybe that's further out there. But I keep talking about that 268.57, and then I think 70 is almost and it's a struggle. And Squares, it seems like there's a lot of folks. It's a very divisive name. There's still a lot of folks short it or betting on it not being successful. I think on the flip side, it's going to be one of those names that helps disrupt sectors in regards, especially in the cryptocurrency area. So that's my thoughts there. Not going to go on a rant on Block. So Baidu reported earnings finally came out at 5 a.m. this morning. My thoughts here on Baidu as well. I didn't get a chance to really go through the entire earnings and the financials, and um, I'll try and listen to the conference call later, maybe tonight. Uh, the premiums are going up yesterday, and even the stock closed up exactly 2%, but even when it wasn't up 2%, the premiums were creeping up into the options. And some of those names, uh, I always talk about doing premium build into earnings, and sometimes you see it on the exact day it reports or the day before it reports earnings, where folks are starting position, and then premiums just creep up, even if the underlying stock doesn't move too much. Uh, Put it on the watch list yesterday, and I was talking about on the rant yesterday morning that I was going to look to close some or all the calls in before the close. They want to hold the risk, so lucky to see the premiums creep up. Got an opportunity to close most of them out for just to cover costs, and then I held a few freebies into today. Stock is pretty much flat. They reported a decline in revenues year over year. I think that's like somewhat expected. Their core search business hasn't been, it's not the growth story of Baidu anymore. The growth story is AI and all the other things that they're in. So they reported that they had rosy commentary on that, at least on their earnings release. I think it's just the start of that side of their business bearing fruit, driverless taxis, so on and so forth. If it holds 88, maybe 88.50 or so at the open, maybe the first 5-10 minutes, I may look for some more strikes to play for move into the triple digits in the coming weeks. Snowflake reported earnings after close yesterday. Actually, a decent quarter, but it seems like these cloud names, they used to be the hot sector, and it seems like they've lost their luster. It seems like it's not the not they're not the sexy names anymore. And then you take a look at a name like MDB. I'm like, maybe this, it's all the way from, I think it hit 205 or 210 at the start of August, and it's been a nice $50 bounce so far in MDB, which is almost a 25% move over the last couple of weeks. Maybe an opportunity to do a little sympathy hedge put, or at least a put play. So don't be surprised if I look for MDV for a move under 240. Its 50-day moving average is 242 and change. So especially if it breaks that, could accelerate to the downside. Turn Pharmaceuticals, they actually CBOE added strikes overnight. So I think there's October 14s and 16s they added. I tweeted, I put in the watch list this morning. So they added more strikes, which a lot of it I think has to do with the increased interest in the name. There's been huge call activity. I've been posting on that. Um, I continue looking for strikes to play for the Octobers because they're going to release their data, and I don't want to be in a spot where they don't release data before September 20th. The October 16th might look interesting depending on where they open, so don't be surprised if I add those. And similar to a lot of these names, the play would be to add the strikes. Same with the Septembers. If I get a chance to lock some in to cover costs, I'm going to do that and then just ride the rest. And with Turn, it's going to be a binary event. So it's going to be $5 if they're that is somewhat in line with adverse effects. That probably not going to bode well. If it's inline data and not much in the way of adverse effects, maybe it trades up to 12 to 15. And then it's above expectations with little or no adverse effects, probably $20 plus. So that's kind of the scenario. So obviously binary in nature. So you're either going to wake up happy or it's going to be bidless options that you're going to be staring at in your account for until they expire. So then the plan, and obviously when you have a binary event, if you're able to lock some in and ride free, that's the best case scenario. So that's what I'll be looking at. Redfin still looks good here. It pulled back yesterday in the morning. It was down, I don't know, 8% or so, and then recouped most of those losses into the close. We have home sales tomorrow, home sales data. That could certainly move the name. I mean, it's an interest rate play name as well. As rates go lower, the activity in home buying is going to just increase and likely dramatically if it's a 0.5% rate cut. Take a look. I think 1150 or so on Redfin is not out of the question in the coming weeks. If it looks like it's breaking out again today, I might look to add more strikes to what I already have. And then last but not least here is Roku. Roku's looking great. Unfortunately, I have spec calls for this week. If it breaks 63 and holds after the open, I'll probably look for some strikes into next week. I think 70 plus is coming. You start looking at some of the gaps. I think it's 68 or so is one gap. And then you have a gap all the way to 90. And when I was playing the calls last time, that's that was the long-term target. It certainly has a possibility of getting there. And then you have all the backdrop with Fubo going on, the TTD earnings, the trade desk, who is it, PubMed, Magic, all these names that you could see just show that the business in regards to monetizing advertisers and putting users in front of ads that actually do a solid return on their investment. That's huge. And it's only getting bigger, and Roku's front and center with that. So that's it, folks. I'll be back on audio later. I apologize. The last 2 afternoons, not much to talk about. Maybe I'll get on the after. I did 12 o'clock rant two days ago. Maybe I'll try and do that again. Oh, just some Redfin headlines. What is this? Ah. All right, folks, let's have a great day. Rock and roll.